Hey YouTube, this looks like somebody wanted the insurance money to me. My videos are usually about warning the public so they can make informed decisions before joining this cult. They're about exposing the small print before it's too late. But this video in particular is for active Jehovah's Witnesses. Harold Camping gets my attention here. He read his Bible and, clearly being a confident and entrepreneurial fellow, found people happy to pay him to read the book for them. He read the Bible, then he told his followers what to think about it. The followers liked his reading so much and paid him so well that he started a radio station so he could preach to his followers full time without having to worry about getting a proper job to pay his bills like the rest of us. Harold told his people that salvation was an undeserved kindness, that there was no hell, just eternal sleep, and all the other established churches had become apostate and should be abandoned in favour of his reading of the Bible. After a while, Harold found less people were paying to listen to him interpret the Bible into English, and he was worried, so he wrote a book that no one would publish, which confirmed that every other religion was apostate. Camping then self-published, so people could read his interpretations of the Bible, even though the Bible is already in English. But although he could always find some people willing to pay him and tell them what to think, it wasn't nearly as many people as he needed to provide for his growing family and himself. He was worried that he may have to get a real job, when all he wanted to do was tell people what the Bible said in plain English and get paid for it. Sure, he had to wear a suit, but he could lie in every day except Sunday, and his followers' contributions were much higher than his social status, intellect and education could afford him in any other way, and he didn't have to worry about those pesky taxes he'd heard so much about. But Harold Camping didn't have to worry long, because, now bear with me here, God loved Camping so much that rather than help the starving or the sick or protect children from rape, God gave a very special revelation to Harold to save his favourite Bible interpreter from having to wake up every day, go to work and pay those nasty bills and taxes himself, like all those people God clearly doesn't love. And God's revelation saved poor Harold from that nasty, nasty fate reserved solely for the great unwashed crowd that must labour for their money and pay Caesar his due. God chose that time of declining contributions and listeners to reveal to his favoured servant Harold the exact time and date when he was returning to uplift the righteous and destroy the wicked on earth. Harold was so happy to discover that knowing this brought all his old followers back and many, many more, each sending money and sometimes selling their homes and cars and quitting their jobs in order to fund Harold as he told them what he had read in the Bible. They did this because Harold was clearly a man of God and spoke so confidently and definitively about the slaughter that would befall them if they didn't listen to his words and help spread them. And Harold praised God dearly for saving him from having to find a proper job and to earn his own money, rather than just taking what the followers sent him, through the sacrifice and denial to themselves and to their families, including children. And despite the sacrifice and hardship to the followers, they sent him more and more money and worked harder and harder to please him. But lo, God did forsake Harold, and the date that God had vouchsafed him passed without event, and God's servant was sorry because God had forsaken him in front of all of the world, and Harold had nothing but all of his followers' money to comfort himself with. But God did not forsake his servant long, and indeed Harold was sent new light after new light, and Harold waxed wealthy because God sent him new followers who also sold their homes and cars and quit their jobs for him. And Harold waxed wealthy because of his strict no refunds policy. After all, It was God that postponed the fireworks, and Harold can't be responsible for non-acts of God. But I'd like to ask Jehovah's Witnesses how they reacted to Harold Campin the prophet. Was Campin inspired of God? Why did he speak with such convincing authority and certainty? Did you know he claimed that Jesus had returned invisibly to buy more time for his claims? Were you convinced? And if so, why? And why not? And despite his obvious shame, did he benefit somehow? Do you understand why the public think his devoted followers were crazy? What could his followers have done to protect themselves? Does the whole scenario seem vaguely familiar? And finally, would a little independent thinking have saved his followers from their obvious distress?